This video is sponsored by my favorite website creator, Squarespace, the best place to go when you want to get a domain or create a gorgeous website or an online store. In a couple of days, it will be my birthday again. And one thing I absolutely love about birthdays is that it sort of makes you ponder the whole concept of getting older, but also at the same time look back at just like what you were thinking and who you were as a person like 1 or 5 or 10 years ago. So I've been thinking about it, like being in my 30s and my experience of this part of my life so far, and comparing it to how my 20s felt. Because you know, it's almost universal to feel like you're lost when you're in your 20s and that you're flailing, trying to figure out who you are and what you want from life and just how to make those dreams for the future come true for you. I definitely was completely lost in my 20s myself. But question is it any different in your 30s? Are we all figuring out and like easing into like a comfortable position of having it together? Or really, are we still just as lost, only like better at hiding it? Money, love, career, children, having a home, you know, being very knowledgeable and intelligent, and also of course like finally learning how to feel good about the way we look, not to mention like creative fulfillment and feeling like we're giving back to society. Is it even possible to find all these things? It does sound like quite a tall order, don't you think? I think we need to settle once and for all that our 20s, it's meant for being lost. This is when you're supposed to flail and live in 100 different shitty flats and like not know where you're going or who you want to be. Because I am of the firm belief that it's not the best idea to like jump on the first best future that comes your way. You know, like the first best career, the first best partner, the first city, or whatever it is. It's the whole like first pancake syndrome. It's very rarely that we get the pancake right on the first try. And if we don't allow ourselves to at least be open to the first pancake falling flat, so to speak, there's the risk of like adamantly sticking to a choice of future that was perhaps too rashly made. I think we would all feel better about ourselves if we instead accept that our 20s is for flailing and wandering around without too much aim, going off piste, so to speak. Because I feel like it's not until we are lost that we stop to sort of look around and notice which direction looks loveliest and which direction looks really, you know, quite dreary and sad. I honestly think that when I've been at my most lost is also when I strangely become my most clear-sighted. I guess it's because when you're scrambling about off-road, it's also when you're like least in a rut and, you know, take things for granted without like questioning where you are or where you're headed. So it's refreshing for your brain losing yourself, even though it of course also is highly, highly uncomfortable and annoying while you're like up in it. I think moving to London in my 20s and meeting so many other immigrants from all over, it was really quite interesting because I got to see such a clear image of how different cultures look at 20-somethings. And honestly, I felt really quite pleased to have grown up in Sweden, because in Sweden we finish college or high school at 19, and then seriously very few people would go directly to university, at least in my experience growing up in Stockholm. Instead, most 19-year-olds, like fresh out of school, will take a retail or maybe hospitality job or maybe like a night course in film studies. David, I'm looking at you. While like either saving money to go traveling next year or just like burning whatever money they make on nights out and a good time. And okay, here I am mostly looking at me myself. There's really not like a sense of rush to decide what you want to do in terms of a career or education. And I think that until you've had a taste for working life, like maybe seen some other countries or cities and, you know, been hit with the mundanity of 9 to 5 and electricity bills, we can't be expected to know what an everyday life we want to choose as our future. Like mandatory gap year, could that be an idea? I think like we would definitely have fewer 40-year-olds with middle-age crisis panic buying sports cars as a sort of consolation prize for, you know, having chosen the wrong path at 19. Another thing, you know, I am of course biased here, but I also think that it's so healthy to leave your hometown in your 20s, even if only for a bit, because one thing about like spending your flailing 20s in the vicinity of friends that you grew up with, the urge to compare yourself to your old school friends is almost irresistible, isn't it? If you're meandering, not knowing just who you are and not doing much towards becoming your, real, true, accomplished adult self, but your friends all seem to be like up and going on their path, it's going to be so much harder to feel good about your romantic bohemian lostness, isn't it? But if you're living in a new place, it kind of cancels this comparison, at least to an extent, because you are doing something else and you're like meeting other people who are also doing something else. And it kind of plants you in another category where being lost and bohemian is suave and impressive and brave, instead of being seen as the town deadbeat without a plan kind of role. I've met so many 20-something Londoners who left their hometown or home country for this exact reason, to get out of the pressure from family and friends to conform to a life that just doesn't suit them and would like make them quite miserable. And that makes me wonder, how many people are there out there who never left and just, conformed? I think that, career, financial stability, a decent home, whether to have children or not, all these worries should not have a place in your 20s. We are too young. Our 20s shouldn't be about finding ourselves. It should be about allowing ourselves to stay lost. So then, let's talk about turning 30. In the few months leading up to David's 30th birthday, he had quite a little quarter-life crisis. We celebrated David's 30th in Sweden at a time in life when we were making almost no money, we had depleted our bank accounts completely, and David started feeling like he was so behind. Like, here he is turning 30, our friends all having impressive jobs, a bunch of them owning their own Stockholm flats already, some of them even seriously planning for children. And we still had such a long way to go to be able to be comfortable financially and afford, food and bills, let alone to buy our own home. We didn't even know in which country we wanted to live in. All we knew that we had started this business together and we desperately wanted it to work, because the alternative was so bleak to us. Moving to Stockholm, renting a flat, saving to later buy a flat, and working jobs we didn't want. It felt like a cop-out, like the cowardly way forward. Not because a flat and a job in Stockholm is a bad deal, of course, but because it didn't feel like us. It felt like, the road of least resistance, like settling out of comfort. So I had to pep talk him at this point, throw all the adventurous lingo I could at him, picturing a brighter future for us both, even though I at times found it really difficult to believe in this brighter future myself. The years that followed, we actually slowly started making money from, doing this. And although we still had a couple of frugal years ahead of us, we started seeing that our brighter future was at least a possibility. Of course, one thing to keep in mind here is that David and I are Swedish, and with that comes the privilege of safety. So although neither of us come from any type of money, we're both from humble backgrounds, we always knew that if things would fall to bits for us, there will always be someone to house and feed us if need be. Neither of us will ever be at risk of ending up on the street. And obviously, without this safety net, we would have been so much more scared of stumbling around without much money our whole 20s. But I also strangely think that because we both are from humble backgrounds, it made us financially braver. Because if you grow up in a very comfortable financial situation, I think that you'd probably be more scared of losing the comfort that money can buy. And although spending quite a few years of our 20s with so very little money, it was ridiculously irritating and difficult at times, I'm so pleased that we have been through that time of meager means, because I feel like it has taught me the true worth of money and to appreciate all the small comforts that I can now afford, like going to the food shop without calculating how much I'm spending, or being able to fly back to Sweden once in a while to visit. But you know what? Your career is just one of the things that you have to find. We still didn't know where we wanted to live or how to find a lifestyle where we weren't working 100-hour weeks. Luckily, we knew that we didn't want to have children. Otherwise, I have no idea how we would have been able to fit that into the mix as well. And that being said, since then, I've decided to take on a completely new career as a novelist and do the whole annoying starting from square one career path again. And I'm just going to say it, I have a feeling that there will be other detours and other square ones to start from further down the line. Speaking of being a novelist, have I told you that the paperback of OK Days is out in just a month? Just you look at that ray of sun cover, how fresh and pretty is it? And you know, since it is my birthday coming up in a couple of days, if you wanted to give me a birthday present, pre-ordering a copy of the paperback would just be so helpful to help like boost my book on the site and, you know, show it to more people. It actually makes a huge difference. I'll leave links with worldwide free shipping in case you're far away from, you know, where I'm sitting now in the UK. My point with all this is, if my firm belief is that our 20s is for being lost, and I think maybe our 30s is for trying something and failing and then trying again, and I kind of think our 40s and 50s and 60s are as well for, you know, trying and failing. Failure is such a beautiful word. We should re-examine that word, don't you think? At least for me personally, my own failures have been just the best. I've learned so much about myself from my bad decisions. I think honestly, if I look at everyone I know, from, you know, fresh out of school, like new adults to wise old ladies in their 90s, the people I know who are like genuinely happiest, you know, the people who wouldn't want to change their life for anything, are generally the people who allow themselves to take detours and completely change directions simply because they feel like it. I mean, it's surely a harder life admitting to yourself that you're on the wrong path and, you know, you should try again. But I think so much more satisfying in the end. And of course, I'm not just talking about the massive, let's pack up the family and move to the other side of the world type of redirections. I mean, anything really, like following your fancy and allowing yourself to want things for yourself. So what if your old school friends are way ahead of you in life and you're feeling like you're behind? Better to be behind than to be far along on the wrong path. I think if we embrace the romance of being bohemianly lost, seeing it as proof of our artist souls and our passionate hearts, you know, the pressure of having it together sort of melts a little. Looking at my life now, you know, in hindsight, we were right to stick it out and like trust in our guts telling us that one day we would realize that future of like being able to support ourselves from our creative work. I mean, this can change at any time, a creative career always being like a volatile thing to choose financially. But I think that even if we had never got this business to work, even if we after a couple of years would had to like admit defeat and move back to Stockholm and try to find jobs and rent a flat and all that, and that would have been like our new direction, I still honestly don't think that I would have regretted my 20s and early 30s having been wasted on a bohemian, semi-nomadic life in shitty flats, making almost no money and like not having anything to show for it. I think I would still have looked back at those years fondly with nostalgia and, you know, hang photos from that time on the wall as a sort of bohemian badge of honor to remind myself that in my 20s, I was kind enough to allow myself the lostness and cocky enough to believe in that brighter future. Even when failing, just imagine the memories and the experiences we wouldn't otherwise have had. Failure, isn't it such a beautiful word? Here's to being lost in your 20s and, you know, trying and failing in your 30s. Seriously, enough with the pressure of being a together sorted person who never like has a change of heart. Hearts are meant to be changed and like mistakes are meant to be made. Just you try to change my mind on this. And oh, don't forget, in just 2 days or so, it's my birthday, and in just a month, the gorgeous and sunny paperback of OK Days will be out in the bookshop. If you wanted to give me a little birthday present, I would just love it if you wanted to pre-order a copy of the paperback. It would really help give my sales a little boost so that it will be like pushed on the sites and like easier to like find for new readers. Anyway, time for champagne and cake and 3 days off work, making out with David as per usual every birthday. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I just like love talking about this stuff because I'm just so goddamn pleased that I was so desperately lost and flailing when I was in my 20s. What a stressful but wonderful time it was. I hope that you're okay with being lost or feeling found or wherever you are in life. Wishing you a wonderful year ahead, and hang in there if it's not all that wonderful just right now. Brighter things ahead. Now, do you want to create a beautiful site and maybe start your own blog? If so, you should definitely do it with Squarespace. Listen to this, with Fluid Engine, a next generation website design system, it's never been easier for you to unleash your creativity. So you start with an incredible template and customize everything by simply dragging and dropping. It seriously couldn't be easier. Squarespace is also amazing with blogging tools to share your stories, photos and videos to make it easy to reach your audience. You can also auto-post your content to Twitter, Facebook or Tumblr, And they have great traffic analytics so that you can see how many people are visiting your site, how long they're staying for, where they're coming from, and what they're interested in, like books or fashion or maybe writing, for example. So what are you waiting for? Go get your free trial today at squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/ginnyMustard to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Okay, I'm off. See you very, very soon. Bye bye bye.